Welcome back to the Weekend Warriors Show Recap Podcast. I'm Ty from the Unemployed Architects. So, I have a lot of shows to talk about this time. I've actually tried to record this podcast twice. The first time there was some technical difficulties, and then the second time I was all sorts of confused as far as like what I had talked about in the first podcast. And then Kyle came on for last week, so I used that instead and just like scrapped it all. But definitely a bummer because I recorded it was a longer one a few times, and it just hasn't really panned out, unfortunately. But hopefully this time, this will be the one. So I got my list here. I'm going to read off all the shows. I had Door 4 Brewing on September 9th. September 10th, I played a little show at Uncommon Ground. The 16th, Gill Street in Bloomington. 17th, Tabapalooza. 18th, I played a little lunchtime spot at the Tipton Park. Had a little bit of recording time. And that's going to be all I'm talking about this time. So I'm actually in a stretch of, it is 7 shows in 9 days with a little bit of recording time in the middle. And it's been pretty wild. So I'm trying. I meant to do this podcast 8 times, but I just haven't had the time. And of course, I'm running late today. But fuck it. We'll see. We'll get it done, and it'll be exciting. So, but I am a little out of it, I would say. I'm trying to. This is the last day of my 7 shows in 9 days, and I'm looking forward to the one tonight for sure, but I am a little worn out. But we'll talk about that next time. So, anyhow, Door 4 Brewing the last time I played outside. It was actually pretty busy when I got there, which usually isn't the case. Usually it's like kind of dead pretty much the whole time, but especially at the end. But it was kind of busy, and I was excited, and I felt like I sounded good. I didn't overdo the kick drum like I do sometimes there, and as far as volume-wise, and it I felt good. I was like, 2-hour set, these people are probably going to leave, so I'm going to like hammer out some like real good stuff at the beginning. And I thought it was sounding really good, but I was getting pretty much nothing from the audience, and I wasn't really even sure if anybody was really paying attention. There was like one table that seemed to my left that was kind of halfway paying attention, so of course I was playing to them, trying to, and they were a little older, so I ended up doing a lot of like older covers, some classic rock, and some Johnny Cash type stuff, and then throwing the originals in. And I thought I would throw like my solid ones in, but I wasn't getting a big reaction on any of them, so I was just like, okay, well I guess I'm doing mostly covers. Then, so it's only a 2-hour set. The last half hour, one of the tables in the back, they came all the way up front. It was just like 3 people. And then some extra people came, like, right there at the end that seemed to be paying attention a little bit. And so it got really fun for that last half hour. And that really made it kind of worth the whole ordeal. But it was kind of annoying that I had burned some of my best songs, kind of early. Because usually I would save, a good amount. But sometimes I'm just scared to save them because it's like I'm going to be playing to nobody at the end. I'm going to have all my best songs that, like, are my killer, closer type songs. And so I tried to burn some of those early to hopefully get people excited earlier, and it just didn't happen. And then I didn't have those at the end. But one kind of caveat, one good thing about it was I played an original, and one of the tables was like, oh, that was really good. And the one that was like really kind of into it. And I ended up doing a couple more originals, and they were just all about it. And, it made me feel really good. And I played Good Friends was the one that kind of got them on the original. And then, of course, I closed with Misery, and they thought that was really good. And so it ended up fun. It just started kind of slow and a little weird. But, that's how it goes. You can never guess it, especially at that place. But they've always been super supportive to me and really generous. So I can't, I'm just happy to be there most of the time. And then the next night was, or I didn't have a show that night. I intentionally didn't because it was Lowe's birthday. And so I I picked up this last minute show. It's like when it rains it pours, because I picked up a bunch of shows this week. As like I'm saying, I had the 7 shows in 9 days. Some of these shows are ones I picked up last minute, and I'd pick that show up, and it was like, I wasn't going to play a show at nighttime because we were supposed to do some stuff, and then that one was like I'd be done by noon, so it seemed, silly not to do it. So I did it, and it was fun. I mean, I had a good time. Wasn't really busy or anything, but I got some passerbyers. I got some tips. It was pretty... I felt like it didn't sound like complete garbage for it being an early show, because, sometimes that is the case with those early shows. It's kind of hard to get kind of up for those, you know what I mean? Like being in the morning, the vocals being warmed up. So it was good, and I ended up, and since I played first and they'd gotten some other people to play a little bit later, Dylan Carricker was one of them, and I hadn't heard him play because we used to do a bunch of open mics, and he kind of was just starting out, and this was my second round of going back to the open mics all the time, because the first time was like that's all I played, and then I started doing shows pretty regularly, and Lo wanted to start singing, so we kind of redid it, and he just it's just crazy how much he's grown, Dylan Carricker, because the first, I mean, not that he was ever bad, but he was figuring it out, and it was cool to hear him. It was cool to hear how much progress and how much better he'd got. I never heard him play with just an acoustic guitar. It was very Dylan-esque in his performance style. He even did a Dylan song, I think, and some originals, some covers, and he did an Elton John tune that was really cool, and I did Tyler Childers tune that I always want to do, but never have taken the time to quite figure it out. But anyway, I thought he did great, and I'm hoping to. I think what's going to happen is he's going to open for me the next time I play in Bloomington, and we'll do a podcast probably after that. So it'll be cool. So I'm excited about that, and it was cool to hear him. He's been putting in the work, so that's awesome to see. And Chasing the Turn played after. They sounded great. They always sound pretty good, and I hadn't heard them in a while, so that was really cool. And Chris Wyman, I think that's his name, played guitar for him, and I just gotta say his guitar tone was really, really solid. I mean, I've heard him play a bunch of times, and I always know because he used to play at the open mic sometimes in that same kind of era or time, and I always knew he was a really good guitar player, but he had really nice tone, really nice tube amp, and then a good pedal setup, and it was, for not having drums and stuff, it was pretty full sound and pretty percussive, so it was fun to watch. And I don't see a lot of live music since I'm always playing it, so it's kind of cool to hang out and see some and talk to both of those people, and yeah, it was cool. And then we went to a band after. So this is, I don't know if this, I'm not trying to be negative necessarily, but sometimes I just get a little annoyed when I go to a show, and very clearly the people on stage can't hear themselves very well. And this is a symptom of something I've struggled with for a really long time. And I mean, I don't play these giant shows very often, but when I do, I definitely notice this. It's a sound guy thing, ultimately, I think. And it's a sound guy that doesn't sing. I think that's kind of where it, because, I mean, all the instruments sound great, and they have this big setup, this big elaborate, they have all these subs and these crazy mains and everything. And this is like a street fest type thing. And so it was outside, and it was really loud, which is fine, but if you push it so loud that the singers can't really make out what they're doing, I mean, you can push the volume to a point that you just can't hear anything. I've been in that situation so many times, and it is so uncomfortable. And maybe I'm projecting a touch on this because I feel like I felt the uncomfortableness because it didn't sound like they were bad singers. It sounded like they were probably good, but the way they were interpreted by probably the crowd and everybody that was listening was, yeah, maybe they weren't. They thought that they weren't good. Instruments all sounded great, but it was just the singers were having a tough time, and it's just hard for me to watch, I guess, because it's like it's a little bit of PTSD, I think, but obviously I'm exaggerating, but it was rough. It was rough to there's just the answer, 8 times out of 10 is just turn everything down, and it'll sound better. And the other thing is, like, if you're a sound guy, and don't get me wrong, this isn't every sound guy. This is somebody, a very specific type of sound guy. Not that they're bad or anything, but they're not. They don't know the sing. And I think if you're an amazing singer, you can probably just sing no matter what. But people like us, the people that can kind of get by as a singer, but maybe not the most naturally gifted. No perfect pitch or whatever. But so I don't think that they really understand that there's a threshold as far as how loud you can make it. I mean, if a band has in-ears, obviously that's going to completely change. You can do you don't have any stage volume if the whole band has in-ears, so you can push it out front and you don't get all this like weird extra sound. But then also, they're dialing in, so it protects their ears from the crazy loud. And mainly, I think this is in the lower range of the mix. So I mean, if the mix has is very bass heavy and they got all these subs, I've played so many shows where I'm like, even at ShoeFest when I played that, I was a little worried for a second that the subs were going to be too much, and I'm like, I should probably use my in-ears. But it turned out fine at ShoeFest because the sound people were great, and they kind of heard what I was saying when I kind of there's a lot of low end. I maybe don't need that much, but and I was I'm just a guy, I'm not like a full band. And even at ShoeFest, I noticed some of the other acts kind of having a little bit of this problem, which I think they sounded still really good, and it wasn't like nearly to the extent as this band I saw that night. And it just is uncomfortable. And the thing is, like, if the band's vocalists aren't sounding great, why would, if you turn it up really loud, it's just going to drive people away. I mean, I'm not saying that they're like the instrumental part of music is, not going to bring anybody in or isn't important, but I mean, the vocals are kind of, this band was a little bit, funky, a little bit, they had some horns and, they kind of had some jam sections, and that's great. But I think, if the vocals don't sound good, it's just going to drive people away. And if they didn't sound good but they were quiet, people might not get so annoyed by it and like walk the other way. But I might be projecting a little bit. I feel like it was a little uncomfortable. And I felt like I saw some people like hit the door maybe sooner than they would have, or hit the exit of the street fest. And so that was kind of a bummer. But it happens to all of us at some point. And then you're up there and you're trying to act like it's not. You're trying to put on the happy face, be the party guy. But inside you're like, what is going on? Like, especially if you don't know what the problem is, if you can't identify what the problem is, you're like, why can't I sing right? And you just think, I must just be terrible. And then you're like, thinking all this while you're smiling through your face, but inside you're kind of screaming like, what is going on? So it's a very uncomfortable situation, and I don't know. I think even I'm not perfect. I when I do my own sound, I still have times where I push it too loud or I push the kick drum too much. And I'm just one dude. I'm doing my own sound, doing the whole thing, doing all the lights, doing the performing, all that stuff. So sometimes it gets away from me, and I don't want to act like I know better all the time. Again, I've even recently have been in the wrong on this very, very fact. But I do know that, if this is happening, sometimes it'll click in my brain and be like, oh, just turn it down. And it usually sounds a lot better. Now, you can't do this if you have if you're in a really loud room and the crowd noise is so loud. Because at a certain point of, turning it down, you can't hear yourself, so, or if you're in a band, and the guitar player is really loud, you obviously have to turn the vocals up in the monitors to be heard, and, everything kind of stacks and stacks and stacks, but I don't know, it's just something it's kind of a little bit frustrating to me to an extent, not that it's the end of the world or anything, I just know that it as a performer kind of hurts sometimes when that happens, and I do think that I don't know that I'm going to solve anything by talking about it, but maybe somebody will hear this and be like, oh, that makes sense. I could, maybe they'll be doing sound at a street fest and be like, oh, the singers aren't sounding good. I wonder why. And then think, oh, I should turn the low end down maybe a little bit on the bass and the kick drum and pretty much everything. And, you'll start to notice that, it might not just be that. It might just be overall too loud. Because there's just an extent that everything just, you can't hear, at least me, I can't hear my notes after we're past a certain volume. But anyway, I digress. I know I kind of went a little hard and long on that. But it is something that I do feel like I wish more people thought about. But again, you'd almost have to be a singer doing sound to know that that's a thing. But, okay, so then the next show would have been the next Friday at Gill Street. I had Wes Hood open up, which was pretty cool. He's a really good singer that I've known for a long time. Kind of more recently started playing guitar. He was a keyboard guy before that, piano guy. And I'd heard him play a couple things. I was like, I always see his posts online, and they're always great. And I saw he was doing some shows, so I was like, yeah, come out and open. And he did, and it went well, and he sounded good. Gill Street's a weird show always. It's I don't know why I'm always surprised. It's like maybe this is just me. I don't know if it's every band that plays there, but it's like the crowd is very separate from the band. I brought a few people out, and there was a table that was kind of into it that I didn't bring, and then Wes and his little crew, and then a couple other people. They were into it, and that's who I was playing for. But all the other people could, kind of care less. And I do plenty of shows like this, so it's not like the end of the world. But it can be a little awkward at times when you play a song, and after all those people that I mentioned kind of take off, and it's like the last half hour, and then you're like playing all your good stuff, and nobody's really acknowledging that you're even there. So I do have this happen a lot. I shouldn't say a lot. This happens probably 1 in every 10 shows you get a show like this. But for some reason, Gill Street, that's just the way it always feels. I mean, I played there in so many different setups, and I do feel like it sounded pretty good. I mean, ultimately, I don't think it was bad. I think I sang pretty decent, and everything sounded pretty solid, but just couldn't get them. I don't know how. I don't know how to get that crowd. And then the next night I played Tabapalooza, so my second festival in September, and always a blast out there. I do always feel like I play so late that everybody's ready for bed, because I always kind of close out the night. I start at 9, and this year they had Friday night, Saturday, and they had some stuff on Sunday. So the music started probably relatively early on Saturday, and then I don't play till 9. They had a really cool stage set up. The sky always looks amazing out there too. It's always just like, it's country sky. So when the sun's going down, and it just looks really pretty, and then the stars come out, and that's really cool too, because you can actually see a lot more than you usually would. But there was probably 20 people that were listening to what I was doing, and I was having a good time with it. I never know how long to play or when I should stop. Probably always play a little too long, and then I broke a string on the last song, which is always fun. And I was like, that's my cue. But the Tabs are just like the nicest people in the world, super supportive of me. I don't know. I really appreciate them, and they're always very, very nice, and happy to be there every year that I can be. So that was fun. Long drive home, late night, and then the Sunday after that, I played at this lunchtime concert series, which this was another last minute show, and it was on the Sunday. It was 11:30 to 1:30. Wasn't sure what to expect, but I did my own sound. I did a little different because I figured out how to use a monitor with my JBL. I just have this RCA to XLR cable, and because it's this big stage, kind of big park, and sometimes the JBL I feel like just doesn't quite cut it. Because I did this earlier in the year at a smaller park, and I mean it was fine, but I was like, I figured this out pretty recently, and I have this really nice Yamaha that's 1,000 watts, little tiny. I think it's like a 10-inch speaker, and so I used that through instead of the monitor, and then I hooked my monitor through that out of the Yamaha, and it was like loud and sounded really solid. A TV crew came out and kind of filmed some stuff, so that was neat. And I saw a little. They didn't play any of my music or mention my name or anything, but on the locally after the Bears game, I was on TV, which was a pleasant surprise, not something I was expecting, and so that was pretty much it. So those are the ones I'm talking about. Next week, I'll be talking about my shows the last 3 nights and my show tonight. Oh, I did some recording on the Monday after that show, and I don't know. Sometimes I just get so frustrated in the studio because it's like, we figure it out. We like the way it sounds in there, and then I get it home and I'm like, we should have done this. Because what we were doing, I'm still working on the State and Water live album. Again, 16 tracks, so it's quite the project. We're like right there at the finish line. I decided to do 2 separate mixes. One for the YouTube videos, because I need a kick that like cuts through, has good high end, so you can actually hear it on the phone. And then I need one that like is sonically the way I like it for the actual one I'll release on the streaming platform, Spotify and all that. And kick drum found a sound that I really liked, but it just a little too quiet still. Not crazy quiet. I mean, it's definitely louder than the singles I released, and but I don't know. So I have to go back and re-export all the files again, all 16, which takes some time in the studio, and I have to so I have to turn that kick drum up, and there's a couple little weird triggering issues. Because ultimately that's how we did the kick drum, is we used some triggers to bring it out a little bit more for the audio, because it's there in the mix, but I wanted it to pop a little more. So I mean, it's still exactly when I'm hitting it, but it's just like a little bit cooler, better kick sound. So, but there's some issues with that sometimes. But that's pretty much it. That's what I've been working on, and hoping to get Magic Song done. I pretty much just need to book a 4-hour session at some point, and I think I'll have that done, because it's like right there. So that'll be my next single. But I got to get this live album out first. It's so frustrating that I'm not quite there yet, and I've been working on it for so long. But what can you do? You just got to keep trying. Hopefully this will get an hour in. Do the 2 fixes I need on that kick drum, and turn all the kick drums up for all of them, export them all, and then I can start working on getting the actual release done. Another kind of exciting thing for me is I got a whole new kind of setup for my video editing. I'm pretty excited about it. I got a Mac, like one of their little box things, and then a new big monitor, because I really want to get like a nice 4K camera at some point for the podcast, and for live videos, editing, and editing any videos, making music videos. But specifically, I want to get some good live ones that I can just kind of record myself. So ideally, I'd have 2 4K cameras, and then I have this new editing setup that should be a lot more legit than mine. Mine's a broken laptop hooked up to a monitor that's, from the early thousands, with a extension keyboard and a wireless mouse. Not great. So I'm really excited. I think I'm going to be able to get a lot of stuff done. I've been looking at different editing software too, and there's a couple that are just going to make everything so much easier. And then, then it's just a matter of getting the camera. So my the computer came in, my monitor comes in tomorrow, and then I'll hopefully just be off to the races. So that's what what I'll be working on. The next shows I'll be talking about Wednesday at Poor Bros in Peoria. Then I played Thursday at the local tap in El Paso. Last night I played the Effing Brew Company. And tonight I played the 12 Bar. So that's all the stuff that I'll be talking about. But anyway, as always, I appreciate anybody who takes the time to listen. And I will talk to you next time. Bye. Have a good one. Thank you.